Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm very, very excited for today's episode. I want to introduce you to my friend, Kathleen Modeen, Kathy, and just a little bit about Kathy. Kathy is a mother of three children, two girls and one boy. She is a grandmother to five grandkids, and in her golden years, found that she's raising a child again, one of your grandbabies.
Yeah.
So, Kathy, I wanted Kathy to come on to talk about raising one of her grandkids in her golden years when you weren't expecting it,
No,
correct?
not at all.
And the homeschooling journey that Kathy has gone through over the last few months. So, with that, Kathy, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, I'm very excited to introduce you to the listeners. So, let's start with your story, raising kids and moving into raising grandkids. Then,
Yeah. Well, let's see. I have three kids, like you said. My oldest is 45, then I have a 44, and then I have a 39. Two girls at the top, a boy, my baby boy. Um, yeah, I raised them. They were all out of the house early, good, good work ethic kids, blah, 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 doing great. And my husband retired and I retired, and it was like, bingo, Jeopardy time, just let's kick back. We sold our bigger house and got a smaller one and settled into Florida. Unfortunately, some events happened with our son, and we had my granddaughter I'm raising, Zayla, is 10. She'll be 11 in a couple months. We've had her off and on her whole life. Sadly, it was a problem that that a lot of Americans are experiencing. It's a drug epidemic. My son fell into that. Her mother fell into that and crashed and burned. Um, 5 years ago, we had to take Zayla permanently. And oh yeah, we were thrilled to do it. We were just thrilled to do it. Like I said, we'd had her a lot, but it was an adjustment. Like I said, we had not financially planned for that. Um, we were well, good to go for ourselves and a modest retirement, but you know how expensive it is to raise a child. So anyway, so we get Zayla full time. She moves into house like we're, you're changing bedrooms and offices, you're losing and this and that. And I don't want to act like it was a burden because it's not. It's a joy. She's woke me up a lot. She's, people laugh, my friends, and say, I don't know how you do it. She's keeping you young. But, it's a challenge. So anyway, first grade, she goes into first grade, and I get something. She loved school. She's very like friendly and bubbly and loved school, and all her teachers she would gravitate to. And we knew why, because they were young people about the age of her mom would be. And that was a mommy figure. I was nanny. She loved me. I was the cushy, soft nanny, but she'd gravitate towards that young teacher. I love her dress. I love her lipstick. And she would just bring them flowers and do things she would do to a mommy. And she did that with my daughter. When my daughter would come over, she'd go, you smell good. I love you. You're beautiful. So she was looking for that. My daughter's become that for her, the younger version. They do nails, they go on outing, things like that. But I noticed all these problems in school. First of all, the school system, I didn't know. I thought it was me and my failures, is not set up to help children, as you know. It's not set up to spot things, and it's pushy, pushy, pushy. And if she's not doing this by this time, then there's a problem. But they wouldn't help. Like she had a problem with reading. She couldn't read, and they'd go, oh well, it's because of the COVID lockdown. She was only locked out of school for 6 weeks during COVID. And yes, she was with her parents. And it was kindergarten. And she was with her parents. And the way her father, and the way they did the virtual learning was they put her in a room with a computer and she did it on her own in kindergarten. But that was only 6 weeks. But she did miss a lot. She did miss the phonics and all that. And then so she's put into first grade and they're trying to shove her along and she's squandering. I'm very proactive, so and every time I'd call the teacher or email the teacher, which was once a week at least, I'd get, she's doing fine. She's doing fine. And I'd go, yeah, but at home on this like hours of homework that you're sending her, She's crying. She don't want to read. I'm listening to her read. She can't read very well. She can't. She's fine. She's fine. But then when they do these standard state tests, she'd do terrible. And I'd say, well, how is she fine, fine, fine? And they'd say, oh, well, maybe she's nervous about the testing. So anyway, first grade, I kept requesting help. I requested an IEP meeting. I got one, and 9 people said, she's fine. She's fine. Her scores are fine. And this is something that some people might not believe, but the truth of the matter is, when Zayla was in second grade, I requested another IEP meeting, and the whole board comes and everybody sits around a table and intimidate you. And it was November 22nd, um, of 2022, and the official from the school board at the meeting said, well, I'm looking at her reading scores, and on her, this one thing they have here that they do a reading score on every few months, they said it was a 23. And that's exactly what no, and it needs to be a 22. So she's actually 1 point ahead. And I said, okay. And he said to me, I think, are you comparing her to like other kids? Because, they made it a problem with me. So I left that meeting dejected, and I said, oh my gosh, but I knew there was a problem. So I just continued to work with her on my own. I tried reading. I tried getting her involved in reading. I tried to make her love it. And it was just every night of homework, 2 hours of homework for a first, second grader was, screaming, crying, I can't do this. So she goes to third grade, and I used my freedom of choice and got her in a different school, public school, but a different school. Her new teacher was brand new at that school. She was an 8-year teacher, and I loved her. And she was said to me, something's not right, something is wrong. And she worked with her and worked with her and worked with her. I told her, she said, have you requested an IEP? And I told her my experience. And I told her, I said, they said her blah, blah, blah scores were 23, and she only needed a 22. She says, when was this? I gave her the date. She went on the school board, we call it Focus, where your child's entire school life is on that computer software. And she looked back and she said, Kathy, was this November 22nd meeting? And I said, yes, it was. And she said, her score was 16. So they lied.
Wow.
They out and out lied. So anyway, they wouldn't give me it. So we requested another IEP, and they kept saying, well, let's try tutoring. Let's try this. Let's try that. So they tried all these things. And she did a little bit better with the tutoring, but not much. And here we are. She's in third grade. And here we are with her doing this. And now they're adding 2 to 3 hours to 2 days a week. So 6 more hours of school. And it was just more frustrating. So then I see her start to hate school. She started hating school. So the teacher said to me, if they don't give her this IEP, I don't want you to be upset, because please don't tell anybody I told you this, but they're not worth the paper they're written on. She said that the helpers barely show up, blah, 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 blah. So here we are. It's April. School gets out in May, in third grade. Not this past school year, but the one before. And they said, school gets out in 2 weeks, and they go, well, let's wait till next year and see. And I started crying. I burst into tears, and I said, this has been happening since first grade. Everybody keeps saying, let's wait till next year. She's falling further and further. I kid you not, the school board official took her, she had files on her hands ready to walk out the door. She slammed them on the table and said, fine, I'll give you an IEP. Okay, so they gave her an IEP. She goes to school last year, the 2023-24 school year. No one ever did anything. No one ever came into the room to help her. Her help was supposed to be when you do the standardized, we have standardized testing in Florida 3 times a year.
Wow.
3 times a year. And if they fall below, they fail. And someone's supposed to come and help her to make sure that she's getting on the technology. And it's a 90-minute test. They do a 90-minute math and a 90-minute language arts, reading, things like that. 90 minutes. And if they don't give them, they don't break. 90 minutes. And she scores so low on those. And the law says, like, say it's 355, I don't remember the number. She must score a 355 to move to the next grade. they'd give her a 354. So a 356 or 5. So she could move, but only by a point or something. I kind of messed that up. But yeah. So anyway, we're doing this, and I'm calling it. And I was the volunteer. I was in the classrooms. I was buying supplies for the teachers. I was doing everything I could to ingratiate myself to the school so that they would help my grandchild. And she just kept falling further and further. But the other thing that started happening was in fourth grade last year, all the teachers were quitting, as we know, all over the country. So the fourth grade's the start of her IEP. They put her in a classroom with mostly pretty severe neurodivergent children. She's not got any of those problems. She academically struggles, but I have an autistic grandson who's high on the spectrum, so I'm not unfamiliar. I have another grandson that struggled in school, so I'm not unfamiliar. But she doesn't have that kind of problem. She had some sensory issues, like your Kara did, but she's growing out of them. But they just put her and in this classroom. Okay, I'll paraphrase it or I'll quicken it up. 4 times by December, the school resource officer had to come in and break up fistfights with different children in her classroom. She was hit accidentally in a fistfight. One of the subs had to have her run, go get help, because he's calling the resource. Fourth graders are beating each other up in the classroom. She said to me, I was trying to move her to a different classroom because her teacher was just the teacher, brand new. She was about 22. I don't even think she'd been certified yet. And she was losing it. The teacher would tell me in our weekly phone calls, I just don't know how to get any control. She's asking for my help. Um, Zayla said, I don't want to leave Miss So-and-so because she cries every day and I don't want to leave her alone. And I said, your teacher cries every day? And she said, yeah. She said, our kids are so bad, Nanny. And none of the other classrooms went. So anyway, so I was like, oh my gosh. And I was on the phone to this teacher twice a week from, August to December. In the beginning of December, she had another one of her they have a 3 state testing, and then they have other testing that our school board does bi-monthly to see how they're doing. Our school board's all about the test, all of them. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, how'd she do? And she said, she's doing pretty good. She said she did good on the test. And I said, can I get the scores sent to me? Because her other teacher used to do that. And she said, oh, I got to download them. Let me get this. And I realized how overwhelmed she was. So I said, okay, when you get a chance, get them to me. So 2 weeks later, it's the last day of school for Christmas break. And she sends home a letter with Zayla saying Zayla's failing, blah, 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 blah. And I'm trying to get a hold of her before she leaves the school. And I said, what do you mean? You told me she was doing fine 2 weeks ago. So anyway, she had all these excuses. Something wasn't right. And so school was out for 2 weeks. And I turned to my husband, and I had been saying since first grade, I'm going to end up homeschooling this kid. I'm going to end up homeschooling this kid. And I want you to know that I tried it in 91 with my 3.
Really?
It took a few months for all of us to realize that we were out of our element and this was going to be a horror show. In 91, there was no support. In 91, there was not all this stuff going on that there is now. There were no podcasts. There was no Facebook groups. There was a co-op at my church and if you didn't use a Becca curriculum, you fail. Wow. And you had to, and I'm trying to use this really hard curriculum. And it was just, and we did okay. But they went back to school next year because I was like, I can't do it. And the kids were like, thank you for sending us back to school. My son in kindergarten, he was like, I don't care, whatever. But so I had tried it before, so now I'm so scared. I'm so scared. So I joined a Facebook group that said Brevard homeschoolers, contemplating homeschool, and I'm joining. I had 2 weeks to make this decision, and I'm joining all of these groups. I don't remember how I came across your podcast because I was researching everything. I locked myself in my bedroom for 2 weeks and researched homeschool. And I came across your podcast. And I said, school to homeschool. And I said, I've never listened to a podcast in my life. I don't know if I don't have patience for that. I don't even have this. What is this? What is Spotify? What is this? So I get on my phone and I Google, what is Spotify? And an install button comes up and I do it. And then I said, oh, this is the one. And And I literally would put earbuds in and sit with my phone all through Christmas break, making cookies and doing this and doing all the Christmassy things, listening to Janae Daniels talk about how to go from school to homeschool. And I'm like, I could do that. Oh my gosh, that's not that bad. And the deschooling, and I thought, oh, I don't need to do that. Just what
That's
everybody
what I
said.
thought.
I don't need to do that. Now, I didn't quite imagine that we'd be frolling on the hillside and then have that like you had an experience, but I didn't think it was going to be that bad. 3 4 weeks into homeschooling, we started January 8th. I was like, I wish I could do that sound. The brakes go on, but the brakes go on, and I'm like, okay, we're going to go back to the deschooling episode and re-listen. Um, and then my groups, that my Facebook groups, parents, that other parents were helping, and one of them, and I said, I need someone to come alongside me and help me if someone would. And this lady reached out and she said, I'll be happy to. And she and I would Zoom meet, and she would tell me some things. Now, she's a classical, hardcore, kids sit from 8:30 to 2:30. No, no. And but she gave me some great advice. Go here, go there. This is how you. And the school board thing wasn't that bad. I mean, I did have to go withdraw her from her actual school.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fiasco. I went down. They gave me a hard time. Long story short, the girl was so rude. And she wouldn't even give me, when I said I need a copy of this, our copier's broke. I said, okay,
Oh
can I
my
get one
goodness.
tomorrow? I don't think it's going to be fixed tomorrow. So I went through that. And those were a few bumps. But actually, when I sent the withdrawal notice in, and 2 weeks later, I got the back thing saying, yeah, good luck. Here you go. And I was like, oh, the sirens, nobody pulled up to my yard to take my granddaughter away. Nobody,
That's what I
and
thought would
that's,
happen.
yeah, my big fear is, because I live on the fringe with her, I'm not a parent, and I'm always considering, like, maybe one of these feckless parents that haven't even talked to her in years might decide, hey, I want my kid back. So I've always lived in that world. But so now I'm like, well, because I feel like while she is my responsibility, and I do have legal rights to her, somebody might come in and say, no, I have that paranoia. So the homeschooling, I added that to it.
Yeah.
People have talked to me about signing up under umbrellas. And they said, oh, that would be so easy. You don't have to worry about anything. That scared me even more, because if somebody does ever knock on my door, I want to say, here you go. This is what we do. I've signed up I've done everything legal. And so that paranoia has gone away. But Zayla was excited. At first she was like, well, what about my friends? And
Mm-hmm.
she didn't have any friends. And
Yeah.
they all say that. And people say to me all the time, well, what about socialization? That's so important. This child is busier now than she's ever been in 5 years that I've had her. Um, in school, 10 minutes, she told me, yeah, I get about 10 minutes of actual playtime at recess. And the kids are like mean, and some of them are pretending they're dogs and cats and wolves, and it's not all that fun anyway. And she said PE's once or twice a week, and it's a few minutes. They didn't socialize. Um,
No.
when you went to school, when my daughters went to school, there were neighborhoods. Kids played outside. They did that. They got together. Church groups got together. That's not that. That doesn't happen now. I was shocked at that. I was shocked because I hadn't been in the world of raising little children, that there wasn't like kids running around in the neighborhood, and there wasn't churches where people said, oh, come over Sunday and go in the pool. Oh, do this. Everybody's just separated like that. There is a lot of, does your kids want to play games online, and does your kids want to do an online thing? And I think COVID ruined people in socializing for real. But
Yeah.
whatever it was, she didn't socialize. Once in a blue moon, did she get invited to a birthday party? Um, I would suggest, hey, do you guys want to come over? Yeah, but nobody really wanted to do that. Now, now the socialization situation with our homeschool has not always been easy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a neighborhood full of kids. I moved here on purpose because there were none. It's not an
Yeah.
adult community, but there are none. And I had to get out of my comfort, introverted shell of Jeopardy and bingo, and actually talk to people. Young moms who look at me and they're uncomfortable. A lot of the young moms are like, they're uncomfortable. And I don't understand that. Like I'd read on Facebook that there was this park outing and I'd go. And they were nice, but they were standoffish. And I thought, why is that? One, I think it's because obviously this child came to me through tragedy. Why do children get raised by grandparents? A parent dies, a parent goes to war, a parent's not doing well. It's never, well, God gave me this baby and I have her now. So
Surprise.
they're uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable, and I get it. Um, a lot of times too, and there's I could surmise all kinds of things, but I don't know. But I have fallen into 3 or 4 young gals that are like, "Oh, that's awesome." They don't even think about it. Um, we trade off. Hey, you take mine on Wednesday, I'll take yours next Wednesday, so that we can get some things done and have some time. Um, I'm the granny in the group, so sometimes I got to be careful I don't get taken advantage of because I seem to get a lot more kids than I farm out. Um, but we go on play dates and things like that, and I've met people at different things. Like Zayla, we got so lucky. Zayla is a horse enthusiast, has been since she was born. I found homeschool horse riding lessons that a ranch owner offers because she's a homeschooler and she has a big ranch. And horseback riding lessons are very expensive. They're like $55 an hour. We did that. We paid the $55 an hour last year. She's been doing it for a year now. And we were choking on that, but we did it because it was important. It was very healing for her, emotionally healing. Um, then we found a new ranch, but there was kids, but they didn't get together. And then I heard of a homeschooler that has a ranch. She offers the same expensive lessons, but twice a week or 3 times a week, she'll offer a $20 lesson to homeschool families. And I was like, now she's limited. You have to sign up. And Zayla volunteers there. Zayla will help clean stalls and brush ponies and things like that. But there's a whole bunch of homeschool kids all running around this ranch. So she's made best friends with one of the girls. They went to vacation Bible school together. And you just have to get out there. You have to be proactive. We have a trampoline park here that offers reasonable monthly fees. And in the fall, when all the kids go back to school and it's not so crowded, we'll do that. And what you have to do sometimes is you have to get on your group, get in a Facebook group and say, hey, a bunch of us are going to go to here Thursday at 11. Who wants to join? You'll get a few people that say, yeah, because if you look on these Facebook groups, the number one question besides how do I start is how do I meet people? How do
Yeah.
I get to socialize? That's a biggie because you don't want your kid getting depressed. So that was our biggie. We did like you did a little bit of math, a little bit of reading, a little bit of writing. She hates writing. We're turning up the volume a little bit as we go. The other night's podcast about the Stones was perfect because I was thinking I got to start doing history. I got to do history every day. No, I don't. Connor Boyack is my second best hero because she actually likes his books, and we went through the series of the civics books, and we didn't go finish them, but I'm taking it easier on myself. But I do get scared, like I do get I'm not teaching her enough. Oh my gosh, she's not this because she's in 5th grade this coming year, and the higher grades are coming, so I'm a little nervous. But I'm trying to just like, okay, I can do it, and just a little bit at a time. So
Which and you absolutely can and will. I think a couple things that I wanted to bring up because you bring up a really important part that about the socialization piece
yeah,
because we're like, oh, how they socialize, but they don't really socialize at school
they don't, not
except
at all.
for the interaction that she had with her class where people are beating each other up.
Hmm.
That's her socialization experience. Like,
Exactly,
you know what I mean? Like,
and acting
and
like wolves, and yeah,
yeah, and all of the craziness
crazy.
that goes on. But even after Katie, my 16-year-old, started homeschooling, her best friend at school, who was involved with all of these clubs, all of these extra activities, all of these things, her mom called me. The friend's mom called me and said, ever since Katie left, she has no friends
Yeah, I
at school.
remember you saying that.
And I was dumbfounded because I'm like, and yet she's supposed to be like, there's socialization has happened, like
It
it
that
jumps to
doesn't
be.
happen.
No, it doesn't. And you bring up another point that, like, as parents, we do have to make efforts to get them out. I had to sign my kids up for fun things for them to
Mhm.
make friends. But now, like, their best friend, like, that's where they met their very best friends, is
Mhm.
through these different activities.
Mhm.
And that,
We've done
and
that
they're the
too.
and they're similar because the homeschooling families, these kids are oriented to their parents or grandparents, and
That was
so
important.
the relationships are healthy then, with
Mhm.
different things. So let's talk about that shift for orientation from
That was an
peers
important
to
one
your
when I heard that podcast, and I would recommend that people go back and listen to that if they hadn't, the orientation. And I have his book on audio. I have to listen to it. That was important because when you said, do you want them peer oriented or do you want them parent oriented? I was like, what is that? And then I
what
heard
does that
that.
mean?
And in third grade, she was still oriented to us, but I could see that switching by the end of third grade. Um, Not just with school, but with, I've even tightened up who she's around that's maybe a friend or a family member. When we started homeschooling, we had a distant family member who lives nearby that we really enjoyed. Say, let's spend time with them, and they weren't supportive. That's okay. You don't have to agree with me, but don't say things like, well, aren't you going to miss your friends, to her. Don't say things like, you're not going to like this. You're going to, and so we've had to say, okay, I'm sorry. We're not going to like hang out anymore because if you're not, and I don't mean like they have to jump on my bandwagon and wave flags, but don't put it down in front of her. Don't make her feel less than. Um,
Especially when they don't have context.
yes, because and they don't even know, and their child's dropping out of school because he can't handle it. So, and I get a lot of the, oh, I could never spend all that time with my kid. Well, that's sad. I'm sorry. But it's not fun for me either. I don't get a break, except for once in a while when one of these moms says, "Let Zayla come over here for the day." I like my breaks, but it is what it is. And Zayla's like with us. I feel sorry for her. I mean, she's like living with old people. I'm waiting for her to be walking around with a crutch. We're trying to act young so we don't. But
I think it's a blessing.
yeah, and she'll sit there and she'll say, "Oh, I'm going to go in my room for a while," and she likes her solitude. But the orientation thing is, I don't want her being oriented to those people and those kids. And I saw that in one of my daughters, got very peer oriented, and she got back in the 90s, and she got very teacher oriented. I knew nothing. I didn't know anything. The kids knew better. The teachers knew better. And our relationship suffered greatly for like 20 years. When she graduated, she went to college for a little bit. Then she moved across the country to Utah. And we grew further and further apart. And then she did, and we've never been super close. And she now says to me, I remember that. I know what I did. I You didn't know nothing. Everybody, and we talk about it and we have a good relationship now. But that my other daughter, she stayed oriented to me. But she's more of a homebody kind of person. The other one is a jet setter, traveled everywhere. But and when I say jet setter, I don't mean she's going off to all these countries, but she, lived in all these different places, does all this fun stuff, surfs, blah blah blah. But she admits now, yeah, our relationship suffered because I didn't think you knew anything, and that happened, and I saw that shift, and I saw her leaving, and I was trying to stop it, but I couldn't, and I did not want that to happen in Zayla. And my older sister, who's 73, said to me when I was thinking about doing it, she said, do it now, homeschool now, because in the next couple of years, you will lose her.
Absolutely.
I can't afford to lose Zayla. Zayla's had a traumatic childhood and has lived through and seen a lot of bad things. She's been in foster care. She's watched two parents an overdose with both her parents. She saw it. She called the ambulance at 4, and she knows the world. But she's also that small child, and I can't allow her. I can't lose her. Not to
So let's
Go
well,
ahead.
I was gonna say, let's talk a little bit about, like, that first, because you pull her you're trying, you don't want to lose her. You want to take care of her and make sure she's okay. Um, what were the hardest things that you were dealing with those first, like that January, those first few weeks or even months of homeschooling? You're 6 months in now, 7 months in.
Okay. The first few weeks wasn't that hard. I listened to your podcast. I did I bought a math book off Amazon, and I don't like math. I'm not like your son. I can never do math again, and I'll be happy. My husband loves math. He's like your son, and he does math. We were worried about that because my girls were like, oh God, we hated when dad did math with us. And math's changed everything, but they do okay. They had their ups and downs with her, like, you're not doing it right. That's not what my teacher said. But they're on an even keel now. I had to have him back off. The one thing she does have is she can't retain information. We are working on trying to find out if that's a diagnosis. But so he started back at the beginning. We started homeschooling her in the middle of fourth grade, and he bought a third grade math book. He said, I'm going to get the third grade math book. He said he got online with, he got on the phone with UC Math UC, that curriculum, and they helped him determine that, wow, she's really, really behind. She never learned the basics. She's not strong on the basics. And they said, go all the way back. So he went all the way back to third grade and started with the multiplication and trying to get her. And so she's doing okay. And she's pretty good at math. She's not excellent, but she's pretty good at math. We were a little bit shocked. Um, Read aloud. I just read aloud. I can't get her to read. I couldn't get her to read all last year, so I did read aloud. And we did Charlotte's Web. We're on a dragon book. She loves graphic novels. I don't. Good, good. So I bought her the whole series of these dragon graphic novels, and she read them all. She's reading recipe boxes, things like that. It wasn't that hard at first. It got hard a couple months later. The first few months were pretty easy. Um, we were finding our way. I bought an amazing, cute book of Aesop's fables, and she just reads it and copies it. That's her copy work. She does that. Um, but then things started getting boring, and we started getting pushback. And one of your podcasts talked about that. So I said, okay, we're switching things up. And we just kept switching things up. And I would just, I'm good at finding ideas, at thinking of, oh, let's do this. She likes bearded dragons for whatever reason. And so we went to a place that has a bunch of them, and we got pictures of her holding them. And then we came home and we Googled everything we could find on bearded dragons. And she did the papers, and she copied Australia, and this is where they're from, and she copied down some things about habitat and food, etc. Then she said, I want a bearded dragon. And I said, oh, what did I do? And I said, okay, so next what we have to do is we have to study about how to take care of a bearded dragon as a pet. So she did that, and she's like, well, maybe I'll wait. So that was that. Then I don't know why, Georgia O'Keeffe came to mind one day because she wanted to do some art. And we always did art. I did what you said. I got good watercolors, good paints, things like that. And we would do some art. We do crafts. We're crafty people. I ordered a cute little book off Amazon on Georgia O'Keeffe. And it told a little bit about her and how she began and blah, blah, blah. And then it showed some pictures. So I said, okay, I want you to take my camera, and I want you to go outside, and I want you to take some pictures, thinking about her portraits and what she painted. So she came in with an up close of a rose. So we got out the easel and everything, and then she painted that. And then one day we went to a ceramic shop, and this was about a month-long unit study. And she did a flower. She did a ceramic flower. And then we looked up what kind of clothes did they wear then? Just general stuff, whatever. But here's something that was when I saw the shackles removed. I don't want to cry, but when you said that, I didn't understand. And I even wrote to you personally on Messenger and said, Janae, when is she going to, child-led learning? When is she going to say, I want to learn about this? What do you want to learn about? Nothing. You don't want to learn about anything? Nope, I want to go horseback riding. And that was all I got. There was never anything. And for like 4 months, and I expected at 4 months her to come in and go, I want to read all the Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank books. I want to do all the World War II things. And I'm like, where is your 17 plays of Shakespeare? Or that
Right.
I was like,
Yeah, my other kids aren't like Katie.
what's wrong with my kid? But then, and then you were like, Kathy, take it down, give her some time. You're still deschooling. So I got the Georgia O'Keeffe. It's like a little magazine book. I got it off Amazon, and it just said, and she was born in blah blah blah, in the 1800s, and it showed a picture over in her studio, and it said that she was brought up on a farm, and she moved to New York City, and she went to school, and then she went to New Mexico, and then she did this and then she did that, and so it was that was a little bit of learning. It was only like probably 10 paragraphs, and then there was some art things to do, but I wanted a little bit more. So as I'm reading on my own on Georgia O'Keeffe, I read some quotes. And one quote said, and I'm going to try to get it right, it said, Georgia O'Keeffe said, I have been terribly afraid almost every day of my life. She said, I have lived in fear almost every day of my life, but I never let that fear stop me. I did what I wanted to do anyway. And I wrote that down, and that was important to me. So we're doing the study, and we're painting the things, and we're talking about, wow, look at this picture of her in her studio in overalls, and all the other ladies were wearing this. And I said to her, I go, can you imagine growing up on a farm and going to New York City? And we talked about all those things. And so then at the end, I read her the quote, and I said, what do you think she was afraid of? I couldn't figure it out. And she said, you know, she was really different, wasn't she? And I said, yeah, she was. And she was, look at that dress she's wearing in that picture, the antebellum look. She goes, and she was on a farm, and all the other ladies in the studio were wearing those weird dresses, and she was wearing like jeans, like the men. She goes, and she was different. And she goes, and she was the only female artist then. She goes, I bet people looked down on her, and I bet she felt weird. And I bet people thought she was weird. And I bet she was afraid because she wasn't like everybody, but she had to do what she wanted to do. That's why I think she was afraid. And I was like, oh my God, the shackles came off. And then at the end of um, Charlotte's Web, she said to me, it's weird. And I said, what? She goes, Fern didn't want to play with her friends or do anything for the whole summer. All she did was sit by this pig. She goes, but when they went to the fair, she didn't want to sit by the pig. She wanted to go on the Ferris wheel with Henry and hang out with Henry. She goes, Fern grew up. And I was like, and I, well, some of us didn't, my daughters were like, I didn't even get that part. Fern grew up, And so that's when I started going, my granddaughter's okay.
Yeah.
She's fine. And,
Yeah.
I got hope, and it's true. The shackles are coming off. And today she said, oh, and I asked her the other day, what's your big rocks? And she's like, I don't know. And I said, what's your important thing for this coming year? I don't know. And today she came in, she said, she had a horseback riding lesson. She says, I asked Miss Sarah if I could volunteer some more at the ranch. And she told me that once a week I can stay till 12 and I can help the little kids and I can help take care of the horses. And she says, and that's my big rock. That's the only one I got right now. But can we please make that happen? And I'm like, yes, it's an hour away, but we are going to make it happen. So
It's a rock.
yeah, it's a rock.
How have you seen her? Because how have you seen her confidence shift since you've pulled her?
I've seen
What has changed?
her reading's gotten better.
Mhm.
She's not I can't wait to read that novel kid yet, but her reading aloud has gotten a lot better. She's doing it where before I'd say, do you want to read that? And she'd go, no. We were reading a Tuttle Twins, one of the little books on civics, and it was on the food truck industry. And I would read a little and I'd have her read a paragraph, and that's how I have to do it. And she was reading her paragraph, and she got into that book, that one. She got very mad about how they did that. And she said, I said, do you want me to take over now? She says, no, I got it. And she kept flipping through, and she finished reading that. And the boot camp one he did about the uncle, which was funny. She read most of that. So she's gotten more confidence in reading, but I keep boosting her up. She's not getting put down at school. She's not hearing, where's your parents? Is that your mom? She's old. She's not hearing any of that. The homeschooling community, what I noticed about those kids, they're normal kids too. Some of them are, little snots at times, but I've not really seen it. I'm sure they're normal, but I've not really seen it. I've seen nice kids who are, she'll play with an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old. I mean, they all get together, they all do their thing. They're all, we went to the movies a couple of weeks ago with a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, my 10-year-old, and an 8-year-old. So, and they had a good time, and the other kids were treating the 8-year-old like she belonged and she should be there too. So, her confidence has gotten better with things like that, and she's still growing into that. But her confidence in her work has gotten better, I think. I don't think she felt stupid before. She said, "I'm stupid," and I'm like, "You are not stupid."
Mm-mm.
And she, but the teacher said, and I'm like, the teacher said that I need to like step it up. One teacher told her she needed to step it up, and I am very open and honest with her, and I talk to her about some things that people might not talk to an almost 11-year-old about. But Zayla's a lot more mature than most kids. She's a lot more mature than most adults, although she still plays and is a kid. We've talked about the school system, how the school system started. She knows all about Horace Mann. We've had open, frank conversations, and she will say, "Yeah, that is what it's like. You get 5 minutes and blah blah blah." And she would say, "Yeah, they don't care about kids." And she said to me one time, and you had that thing about schools looking like prisons. I never told her that. Her dad spent a lot of time in a prison, so that was a subject that I didn't get into. "You know what that school looks like?" And I said, "What?" She goes, "Remember when I was 5 and I had to go visit my dad in jail?" And I said, "Yeah." And she says, "It looked like that place." She picked up on that. So
She
she's,
saw.
my biggest fear is ever having to send her back to public school. And I said to her, we are open and frank. If you don't like it and you're like, "I want to go back to school," I go, "I'm not telling you I will, because I wouldn't. But I want us to have that conversation." I said, "We can figure some things out." And I've asked her a couple of times, "Are you not like when she's pushed back on doing some work, I don't want to read or I don't want to write." And she's not that kind of kid, but I'll say literally once or twice a month, I'm like, "No, come on, finish that up so we can go do this and that." And that's not too bad, I don't think. Um, and yeah, and she'll be like, "Okay," and she'll do it, or she'll get upset. But she has said, I've said, one time I got a little frustrated, and I said, "Well, do you want to go back to public school?" And she's like, "Never, don't even ever say that." And she got mad at me. "Don't say that
Yeah.
again. You are not sending me back to public school." And I had to go, "Honey, I never would. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't want to go back there." But yeah, she sees it. She knows it. She don't want to go back
What
there.
what shifted for you, and what were the hardest parts for you mentally, and then what has shifted since you started homeschooling?
My life didn't change too much, because I was at home with this grandchild anyway, and I'm retired. It's not like I had a career. It's not like I had a lot of friends. What has shifted is, what things that are different is, I've had people say, "Hey, you want to go to lunch?" And I've had to say, "No, I can't." Raising a grandchild, let alone homeschooling. I've had people go, "You're nuts. You got to be out of your mind." I thought, someone said to me, "I thought you were crazy when you took in a child at your age. Now I think you're really crazy." I don't talk to them anymore. We didn't have an
I wouldn't
argument.
either.
I just backed up. It's not for everybody, I guess, but I couldn't sacrifice my grandchild to the foster care system. But because there is no one else. Um, what has shifted for me, I'd say, is my thinking. I have had to let go of, if your kid's not doing this, they're failing. If your kid's not here, they're failing. If your kid doesn't reach this, they're failing. I've had to let that go and say, every child has their own pace that they go in. And if you stop trying to force them to learn all the things that you think they should learn, they will naturally go into learning these things. She has said some stuff to us about her critical thinking, I see, is opening up all on its own. She is saying things like, "Well, that wouldn't happen if this didn't happen, and these are natural consequences," and things like that. Um,
Oh, I love that.
and I don't can't think of a good example right now, but lately there's been some really great conversations with her that I see her critical thinking, her shackles are coming off, and her thinking, and it's not anything ugly. she's very positive now. Someone might say something. Her cousin the other day said, "Oh, we don't get to do this," and she said, "Well, we have a garden. We've been not having any rain. This was a few weeks ago, not any rain." And her cousin was mad because we couldn't swim because of the rain. Finally came and Zayla said, "But just think, those seeds we planted last week, are getting watered, and they're not growing fast enough. The flowers aren't, or something." She said, "So maybe this rain will help." And I see her doing that, and she's got this. Well, at least everything is. Well, at least we can do this. Well, we don't have cookies. Well, at least we have some sweet cereal, and I'll put milk on that, and that'll be good too. And she's like getting more positive. She's starting to be able to look at things and come up with some pretty adult observations about the world. Um, the recent events of last weekend when President Trump was almost assassinated, she was in her room. I was watching it in the room that we rewatch TV if we're watching news, because it's, sometimes it's ugly. She came in. What happened? I kind of told her, and I said to her, "This is something in history that you should know about." And I said, "Your children are going to read about this, and you are seeing it." And she said, real sarcastically, she goes, "Yeah, I better pay attention because I'm sure the history books in school will mess this one up." And I was like, she said that. And I said,
Wow.
"That's exactly right." Because I talked to her about the Mayflower. I talked to her about the truth of that. And we just bought Connor's history books, and I'm excited about that. And she's like, "Yeah, they didn't say that in school." And I'm like, "No, because they're not going to. But this is really what happened." And so and she said, "Yeah, I guess I better pay attention to this because the history books aren't going to tell the truth about this one." And my husband was like wide mouth, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that came out of her." And those are the things that have shifted. My shift has been to let go of an Ivy League. If you don't do this and you don't do that, I don't even care about college anymore. Um, I do for her. I'd like her, she wants to be a vet. I hope that happens for her. I have a grandson that has a lot of learning disabilities. He just graduated from school, and they're like, "What are we going to do? He don't want to go to college." And I said, "Of course he doesn't. He can barely, do, multiplication tables." He has a lot of diagnosed learning disabilities. I said, "Send him, first of all, let him have the summer to like decompress his brain." And I said, "Let's talk trade schools. What's he good with in his hands? Things like that." So it's, where before I was like, "What's going to happen to him? How's he going to support himself?" He's going to support himself just fine. You know, most Americans don't go to college and become lawyers and doctors. We figure it out. And I don't have that school pestering me. I don't have all these they put a lot of demands on parents, as you know. I don't have to be at everything at this school. I don't have to drag my arthritic self down to yet another family night. you know, and it's funny, I can walk all around the ranch and I can run all over the movies with a bunch of kids in the trampoline park, and that doesn't bother me. But all those things, those nitpicking things we had to do at the school, were really becoming hard for us. It was, and I felt like we had to do it all so that she could, be the good family. But that's shifted. The pressure's off. I can do this my way. I don't have to go to all these parent meetings and this and that. And if I want to go here, I go there. If I don't, I don't. If I want to sleep till 8, I do. If I want to get up at 7, I do. Those are the wonderful things. Those are the shifts that mostly I've had. School's gotten easier. We're moving up into the upper grades now, so I'm not going to say that things are going to always stay this easy, but so far I'm hanging in there. I didn't send her back. That's a good thing. We're still doing it.
Well, I am so proud of you, and I'm so excited for you guys and your journey. And but you're right, like when you said they figure it out with college, like they figure things out. And I think we don't give kids enough credit, especially half of them leave high school and they're like, I don't know,
Look at Nicole's daughter. She did her own. She got herself into college. She did her. What is it called? The word is failing me. All her credits and things that she had to. She Googled it. This is how I do it. She got herself into the college of her choice. It'll happen.
Yeah.
If they want it bad enough, it'll happen.
It's true. Well, and sometimes they put off college till later. I this a couple weeks ago I met this phenomenal 22-year-old girl. And I said, well, what do you do? Did you go to college? She's like, no, I've worked 3 jobs. I just wanted to take time to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And now I'm going to be going to Colorado State University, and this is what I'm going to be studying, and it took her time to figure things out, and she is this wonderful 22-year-old who I hope marries my son, but that's another conversation. I set him off another line.
That's another podcast.
That's a different. She'd probably die if she heard me say that. But my son would probably be like, "Mother, we
Yeah,
haven't even met each other."
you're in trouble
But
now.
I am in trouble. But I look at, because I do talk to single young adults. I have a single young adult, and I talk to them, and so many are like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, and I'm in college, or do I go to college? Do I do all these things? And they figure things out.
I didn't have
they figure it out.
I didn't have the opportunity to go to college. I got married at 18, had a child the following year, like 13 months later. I didn't have the opportunity to go to college. My husband's in the military, and I just was a stay-at-home mom. I think when my son was in 3rd grade, I took a typing class to see what things were like. Then I took a medical terminology class. All these, none of these are college credits. They're at the college, but they're, um, I took a medical terminology class. I took a class on medical administration, how to work in an office. I ended up getting a receptionist job, a file clerk job when I was like 27. When I retired, which was a medical retirement in 2009, I was running the offices for the trauma surgeons at our local trauma center. Never had a day of college in my life. But one thing that I do is I do like to learn. And if I like something like the medical field, I took HIPAA courses. I got certified in that. I learned all these like basic medical things. I did take a 2-year assistance class. I pushed and pushed all the way up into my 40s. And I just went for those jobs. I went for those jobs I wasn't qualified for. And I remember sitting in a doctor's office, and he was fresh out of school. And he was trying to be so polite. He was so cute. And he was like 20 years my junior. And he was trying to be polite and tell me that I wasn't qualified. He was a big surgeon, big trauma surgeon. And I'm not qualified because he said, I can't afford to hire a whole bunch of staff. So I need a person that can run my office, help me in the back with patients, and blah, blah, blah. I sold myself to him in 15 minutes. And I said, give me a chance. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, I know I can do this. I said, I wouldn't be here. I said, if in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you think this is not going to work out, we'll part friends. I'm not going to sue you. I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to try to collect unemployment. He said, okay, deal. I was with him for many years, and I ran his office. And, he told me over and over, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I'm at once he got someplace. And I mean, for a major hospital, Health First Corporation, I ran a trauma surgeon's office. No, few courses. So.
Well, and it's true. And we do. Our kids figure it out. We figured things out. I do have a couple college degrees, and I use them every Halloween when I make costumes for my children, because I have a degree in costume design for theater and film. Woohoo!
But that's amazing, and that's awesome, and that's something to be proud of.
They have great costumes. But I haven't stopped learning.
No.
I still learn stuff.
Yeah.
Like I learned to do a podcast. So, and our kids are no different.
Yes.
They figure things out, and
it's okay to learn along with them too.
That's right.
I'm going. I promised I would learn along with the math this year. I don't want to, but I promised I would sit down and learn around with the. It's not going to happen, but I did say I would.
What would be last thoughts for all these moms and dads and grandparents and caregivers, some who are raising these kids that are, some of them in some cases, that are not their biological kids?
Right.
What would you say to all these different parents? Last thoughts that you want to share, advice that you want to give to them?
I would like to say that if you have a child you love and you want the best for that child, if that's your true motivation, you want the best for that child, everything else will follow. If you have that, I want the best for this child, I love this child, I want to help this child, all of it will follow. You'll figure it out along the way. You can, it's true, you hear it all the time, you can learn along with them. Yes, I took math, back in the 60s, or 70s. You can learn along with them. If you have the motivation and if your heart is pure and this is what you want to do, the rest will follow you. The other thing is, don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. Don't listen to the naysayers. I learned a long time ago, even if it's, I learned recently, even if it's family, don't listen to the naysayers. If they're not supporting you, you don't have to, don't have a fight with them, but just move them, just move away. Just move that out of your way, because that, you don't need that. This is hard enough without the naysayers. So surround yourself with positive people. Get online, get on the podcast, get in the Facebook groups, try to do things, just try to expand your horizons. Know that you can do it. Don't expect too much out of the kid. Make sure you de-school. Make sure you de-school. Hey, if you're a type A personality and you love the classic curriculum, go for it, but don't think you have to. I think that answers it. I'm not sure. And the one thing that was always a struggle for me when they say, oh, if you let your kids learn, they'll come up with what they want to learn. Well, we've been doing this, and we schooled through the summer a little bit. She's not come up with what I want to do. She's not come up with those things, and that was bothering me at first. But now I'm starting to see that maybe she is, and don't worry about it. She will. She's not going to be a bag lady. She's not. She'll be fine. She's not going to have to depend on a man. She'll be fine. And just love your kid and just want the best for them, and the rest will follow. And gather support. Gather the support. Gather the support in. Push out the non-support. And I guess that's it. I hope that was said well. I hope that resonated with someone. But I think that,
perfect.
yeah.
It's perfect. Kathy, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Thank you. I
your
appreciate you.
time, your encouragement, and sharing your experience and wisdom parenting in your golden years when you
Thank
could be
you.
watching Jeopardy.
Yeah. Thank you so
So
much. And thank you for having me. And thank you for all your support, because you have supported me both through the podcast and with us messaging. And I really appreciate that, because I could not have done this without you, because I'd have been like trying to buy a Becca curriculum and doing it all wrong again. So,
well, it's been my pleasure and an honor to become friends. It's been a blessing in my life.
thank
So
you.
thank you for your friendship. Now, mamas and papas, you're doing better than you think you are.
Amen.
And you got this. You got this.
Amen.
We'll talk next week. If you enjoyed this today, please like and subscribe. You could also join our private Facebook group at School to Homeschool, or sign up for our newsletter at www.schooltohomeschool. Have a great day.